As a preliminary matter, this is John Ostrowski, Chair of the Conservation Commission. Please permit me to confirm that all members and support staff are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Martha Gatch,
Here.
Jason Port,
Here.
Bob Jakes,
Here.
Ken Polito.
Here.
Support staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Brad Stone.
Here.
This open meeting of the Shrewsbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirements of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Shrewsbury Conservation Commission is convening by video conference via Google Meet as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer unless asked by the chairperson or the support staff person. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. Chair will introduce each presenter of an agenda item. After they conclude their presentation, the chair will go down the line of members first, and then to support staff, and lastly to the public for questions or comments. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Remember that unless a document is being shared, your camera feed is triggered by your speaking or background noise. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. The chair will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay, going on to our agenda. Item 1, review and approve minutes. And obviously we don't have any tonight to review. Item 2, sign bills. Brad, are we having to sign bills when we come in?
I'll get together with Sherry at some point and see where we're at
Okay.
for the legal ads and those things.
Okay.
So I'll if we have any, I'll make sure that we've got them ready for you when you do the signature pages.
Okay. And moving on to item 3, meetings and hearings. Our first hearing is a continued public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by Taylor Fontaine to construct an addition and add a garage to an existing home at 4 Stoney Brook Lane. James, do you want to pick up where we left off last time?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Just again for identification for the meeting minutes, I'm James Tatro from Thompson Liston Associates, representing Taylor and Danielle Fontaine. And what they're proposing is an addition to their home and a new garage to their home at 4 Stoney Brook Lane. And where we left the last meeting was that it was the sentiment of the commission and of Mr. Stone that we wanted some additional information and for him to be able to take another look at the site and confirm things in regard to the issue of redevelopment, because this lot has a perennial stream behind it. We submitted plans now with the mean annual high water mark flag lines shown on it. And we also submitted a plan with at the bends of the wetland line behind it, flag number shown. Interestingly, to my surprise, looking at the old plan that accompanied this subdivision, there were not flag numbers on it, which shocked me, but I guess that was somewhat indicative of the age of it. So that's why you have flag number 1, 2, and 3 behind this at the edge of the wetland, and you have mean annual high water line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The stream channel itself is very well defined. The wetland is a little boundary is a little more questionable because you rise up from a very flat area that has dark, still nearly saturated soils at this time of year, to finally rising up once you hit you just about hit the edge of the lawn behind this home. And we added, again, the wetland flag numbers and the mean annual high water line flag numbers to the plan. At Mr. Stone's suggestion, we also added the FEMA 100-year flood line, which comes out behind this lot just a little short of the wetland line, and the calculated flood boundaries from that flood map, which are that this stream, when it's just about to flow into Lamplighter Drive, FEMA says the calculated 100-year flood elevation is 513, and a little bit west of what shows on the sheet, just after it's gone under Woodchuck, the stream flood elevation is at 514. So you've got 513 by Lamplighter, 514 back near Woodchuck, and we're about halfway between it. So about 513 fits roughly with the boundary as the map shows it. So it's at least consistent with the topography that we have. The biggest change we made to the plan, pursuant to, again, Mr. Stone's suggestion, was to pull the erosion control barrier away from the edge of the lawn and a little closer to the proposed addition and the house. Where it sits now would leave 25 feet behind the proposed addition, and it would be about 38 feet off the proposed garage, which should allow plenty of room for any contractor doing this work. And I just want to circle back to the issue of redevelopment again, because this perennial stream is behind this house. The entire yard, house area, front yard, and even into Stoney Brook Lane is within the riverfront area. And our filing contends that this area around the house where the alteration will take place has been previously altered. Its lawn, its driveway, it's clearly not a natural condition with its natural topsoil. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. We made some changes to the plan pursuant to Brad's suggestion, and I think he's also had a chance to view the site again.
Brad, do you want to jump in here and make a comment?
Sure. One of the concerns that I had and that some of the commissioners had at the last meeting was the age of the wetland delineation. So I did go out to take a look at that once I had heard that flags were out there, and confirmed later on. I think what happened was they just hung the flags where the old delineation was, and that's not really where the wetland line is. There's not going to be a huge change there, but it does go up a little bit more into what's shown as the upland on the plan. Not a drastic amount. I mean, you're talking 5 feet in areas, maybe a little bit more at the most. So at the end of the day, I don't see that this project would change at all. But I did reach out to the engineer before the meeting that I do think that line needs to be affirmed. So one thing I could do is go out after the meeting, if the commission so chooses, and just have them revise the line once we can agree on a place for it. And then have them submit revised plans for that, and make that part of the order at the time. Or you could simply choose to wait for it. It's up to you. But I don't see it as being a big change, but there is going to be a change there. As far as the riverfront, that was the other thing I had last time. After seeing the site, I am much less concerned about the riverfront issue.
Okay. Let's go to questions from the commission. Martha?
I don't have any questions at this point.
Jason? Jason, you're muted. Anything, Jason?
Sorry
We
about
can't-
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, no questions.
Bob?
I'd just like to ask James, are you comfortable with the resolution that Brad has proposed, James?
Sure. I probably agree with him. As if you're out there, I think flag number 1, where the flared end section discharges, is pretty good. Number 2 is probably should be looking at the growth now, probably a few feet closer at least to the towards the house. And number 3, several feet.
And you'll
So
be able to
I
turn
would agree.
And you'd be able to turn the plan around pretty quickly, right?
We are a motivated party at this point.
Okay. That's all for me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Ken?
All set.
All right, I guess the next question would be, does the commission feel comfortable on closing the hearing tonight and have Brad and James walk the site and adjust the flags? And as James just said, he would do a rapid plan turnaround. Is everybody amenable to that? Or if anyone isn't, can they say so right now? Or we could leave the meeting open and have him submit a revised plan for the next meeting.
I'd be in favor of the resolution that Brad suggested and that James has agreed to.
All right. Martha, are you in favor with that?
Yes.
Jason?
I'm in agreement.
Ken?
Yes.
Okay.
Any
All
public
right.
comment here, Mr. Chairman?
That's what we're going to next now. Let's see. Is there anyone from the public who has any questions or comments on this hearing? All right. Not hearing any. We'll close the hearing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, folks. Can you hear me? I apologize. This is Taylor Fontaine.
Yes, Taylor.
Thank you so much. So I just wanted to be clear. And James, maybe you can help me on it as well. So does that mean that we won't have to wait until the next meeting, or we will have to wait to the next meeting?
You will not have to wait till the next meeting. We've closed the hearing. We'll take a vote on issuing the order tonight. And all you'll have to do is wait the required amount of days after you get the order of conditions for anyone to make an appeal.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for everyone's help. We very much appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, moving on to our second hearing. This is also a continued public hearing, and it's regarding the notice of intent filed by Arcady and Irina Furman for the alteration and restoration of riverfront areas at 68 Cherry Street. James?
Yeah, again, Mr. Chairman, James Tatro from Thompson Liston Associates, this time representing Arcady and Irina Furman, who are the owners at 68 Cherry Street. This is a property where some alteration of riverfront area was done in the back and side yards of the property, and the folks were notified by Mr. Stone that they could not do so. They did respond immediately to his prompt and his suggestion to stop and put up a barrier. Since the last meeting, we had proposed that they would replant and restore most of the riverfront area, which was altered, which was maybe it was some 11,000 square feet, and that they would ask that the commission permit them to keep an additional, at that point, nearly 10% of the riverfront area as additional yard beyond what they had before any of this alteration was done. The sentiment clearly of the commission at the last meeting was that they should not ask to keep a maximum permissible 10% of the riverfront area as additional yard. And in response to that, we reduced the area that's shown in green on the plan on the screen, the hatching of green, is sort of a triangular area. We reduced that so it is 7% and change of their total riverfront area. And also in response to some suggestions of Martha about plantings, we added spice bush and sweet pepper bush to among the plantings here. I think she had also suggested a black gum tree as a planting, and we looked into that, and we were going to, but each time I was looking for some more information, there were these great praises of this tree as a shade tree. And we also, at the last meeting, had discussion about the value of, call it lower canopy vegetation without tree above it, et cetera. And frankly, we worried that all these praises of this shade tree, that if we put one of these in the mix, we would be to some degree changing the nature of the vegetation that will reestablish, hopefully, in this riverfront area. So respectfully, we really did very seriously consider it, but we were kind of hesitant with all these praises of it as such a wonderful shade tree. I would also just want to note here, again, we're asking that the Furmans be allowed to keep 7% and change of the of riverfront area on their site be added. And the area in question, the green hatching, at its nearest point is 163 feet from the perennial stream. So it's not even close to being within the inner riparian zone. And I would ask that I know the Furmans should not have done any of this, but they have responded as they ought to upon finding out the actual regulations and rules and what was permissible in their situation. But I will try and take any questions on this that you may have.
Martha?
Thank you for looking into that so deeply. We have planted tupelos in sun conditions, and they're doing fine. And I understand the concern about changing the nature of that ecosystem without establishing a canopy. So that is fine. I'm wondering about lawn care practices where the lawn is close to the riverfront, to the riparian area. If the owners would be amenable to having a discussion about best management practices for lawn management and fertilizer use where it's so close to the waterway.
Certainly, they'd be amenable to a condition citing that. And off topic, I just wanted to say that one item I forgot to mention in the presentation is that it looks like the board on the adjacent property, the Sebastians, decided on a standard if boulders were to be used as the barrier for the yard, that on a, I believe it's at a 2 to 3 foot size with a 6 foot maximum separation. I just wanted to point out that this applicant would be perfectly fine with the same standard being cited.
Okay. Anything else, Martha?
No.
Jason?
No questions.
Bob?
No question.
Ken?
No questions.
Brad?
I'm all set.
All right. Does anyone from the public have any questions or comments on this hearing? All right, I'm not hearing any. Before we close the hearing, is the commission satisfied with the amount of effort the applicants put into minimizing this impact? In other words, the 7% versus the reduction from 10% to 7%. Is everybody on board for that?
I am.
Martha?
I suppose, yeah.
Ken?
Yes.
Jason?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Having no further questions, we'll close the hearing, James.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
You're welcome. All right, that concludes our hearings. And right now we have to discuss orders of conditions. So you want to make a motion, Bob?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we issue an order of conditions to the Fontaines to construct an addition and add a garage to an existing room at 2 Stoney Brook Lane.
Okay. And do we have a second on this?
Second.
All right,
And
any
this would be-
discussion? We
Excuse
have
me,
any-
Mr. Chairman, this would be conditioned. Can you hear me?
You're breaking up, Bob.
Okay. This would be conditioned on the scenario that Brad outlined with regards to reflagging the wetland and having the engineer submit an amended plan.
Okay. Sounds good. And we have a second from Ken. So all in favor? Let's do a roll call. Martha?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
And John Ostrowski, aye.
Mr. Chairman, I would further move that we issue an order of conditions to the Furmans for alteration and restoration of riverfront areas at 68 Cherry Street. Carrying forward with regards to the wetland barrier of stones, the same condition that was in the adjacent property.
Bob, also Martha's lawn management, BMPs. I don't know how we'd work that in. Do we make a requirement that they discuss this with someone, Martha? I mean, they may take care of their own lawn, so. You know what?
They may. I don't know that we can, I don't think we can require specific practices, but I would just like to make sure that they get information about them.
We can put it in the order. We can just say that they should pursue best management practices for lawn maintenance to minimize impact on water quality at the perennial stream. How's that?
That sounds good.
Okay. All right.
Brad, do you know if the town has references, or would you like me to find some?
So we've never used that in our orders before. I know I have information from various sources. A lot of that comes from our stormwater materials. But I gladly, if you want to share what you have as well, you may have some different things than what we have.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so Bob's made the motion and we had conditions. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ken seconded it. Let's go to a roll call. Martha?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
And John Ostrowski, aye. All right, that takes care of our orders of conditions. Now, certificates of compliance. Brad, can you bring us up to date?
Okay, so for 196 Oak Street, I did get confirmation from someone in our office that the recharge chambers are in. So we're still waiting on the roof leaders connection to them. So once that's been installed, then it should be ready for a COC at that time. And then
Okay.
going to the two South Street ones, I did go back out to that site today. There is still some areas that need to fully grow in and get stabilized. Where there was the erosion problem by the driveway, actually some of the matting has been moved by some of the continuous flows that run off the driveway there. I do have some pictures. So it's certainly coming along, but it's not quite there yet. Let me just pull them up. So that's the area just down gradient of the driveway where you had that big erosion rill before. So some of the stone has fixed that, and that's actually some of the matting that's in place right there. So a lot of that is doing its job as the BMP does a bigger shot.
So are we looking, Brad, for that to get better vegetated?
Yeah, and then there's just some areas of the slope. You can see a lot of the grass in areas didn't quite take. I'd really hate to see the erosion control be removed at this point because it still is capturing things from different spots.
Yeah.
The biggest, there's just an example. That's actually going near the side of the property line on the far side, not where the driveway is, but the other side. So it's just a matter of it needs more time, and this isn't really the best time of year for everything to grow. So unless something's constantly watered back there, like I said, it has come along quite a bit, but just not there yet, in my opinion.
And that was hydro-seeded, correct, Brad? Was that hydro-seeded?
Yes, I do recall it was hydro-seeded.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, let me know if I can chime in.
Yeah, go ahead, Rashid.
Rashid Sheikh for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, as per Mr. Stone's advice, we did significant amount of work. And first of all, I apologize for honestly pushing the board last time for getting the COC. Naive on my part, and honestly, it was basically because the family had no home, and the lawyer was really pushing to get the COC before closing. So I really apologize for really, asking you so many times only because the family really had no home. So, but finally, the lawyer agreed and they did close. And we appreciate Mr. Stone's, help and guidance. And I think the area has improved tremendously with the work we have done. And we have absolutely no problem waiting a little more. It seems like Mr. Stone has gone there and taken some recent pictures in some of the areas. Most of the area, like he said, is doing very well. And some area need more water because it is really farther away and probably the sprinkler system was not, the improvised sprinkler was not getting there. So that's fine if the board, wishes to wait. That's absolutely fine with us. I think we are making a lot of progress there.
Okay. Okay, it sounds like we're all in agreement then. We'll hold off, Rashid, let the vegetation take a little better bite and hopefully get you an order, a certificate rather, in another month or so.
Right, and actually it was hydro-seeded and we do have a warranty. And actually I'm going to go out there and maybe we'll get overseeded in certain areas which it needs to. No problem.
It really needs it because I don't think we're going to see much growing there unless you do something.
We'll take care of that.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Rashid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Brad, 19 Floral.
So that one was a carryover from last month simply because I hadn't had a chance to look at it. I did get a chance to look at it. I'm okay with the commission issue in that one. 56 Brook, that request is for a partial. That's one of those ones where it was an A&R plan. I think it was 3 lots. And the lot that they're looking to release is not the one that was affected by the lot that was before the commission for the order of conditions. So it simply showed up on the title as part of the parent parcel. So it's a lot that was outside of the commission's jurisdiction. So I'm okay with the commission issuing a partial, just releasing that lot, and then the remaining work will still be under that order and not have a certificate at this point.
Okay. All right, 109 High Street.
Yep, so I'm okay with 109 High Street, and I'm also okay with 17 Calumet Farms Road.
All right. Okay, that takes care of our certificates of compliance. Discuss enforcement orders. You want to take it, Brad?
Sure. So 59 Cherry Street, Commission recalls that's the one that had the excavator access go through the swamp for testing on the upland. And I think the deadline was first week of July. I have not heard anything yet.
Okay. They're not doing any other work out there, are they, Brad? No.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, I've only been by there a couple times, for the purpose of looking at the other Cherry Street lots we're dealing with. But again, my understanding from everybody involved is they access through the swamp. They cut trees down, went through the swamp with the excavator to do test holes for what was a proposed, I think it was an over 55 development on the upland portion. And I know back in March or April at the latest, that project went before the Board of Selectmen and tried to move that along for rezoning purposes. I think part of the parcel needed to be rezoned. And with the emergency order in place and everything the town was dealing with, I think the Selectmen voted to push and table that discussion more towards the fall.
Okay.
So I don't even think they're doing too much in terms of engineering or anything like that at this point until they hear more from the planning board and the town on the zoning aspect.
All right. Brad, can you reach out to them and see why they haven't submitted a report, unless they've forgotten?
Sure.
Okay. The next one, Brad, 6 Cheryl.
So I did go out to that site a couple of times since the last meeting, once on my own, once with the applicant, and the retaining walls that weren't supposed to be constructed were removed, and the grading was pulled back more towards what the permitted plan showed. In addition to that, the commission recalls we had discussion about the replication area not meeting the specifications for what was on the original plan. So there's been more of the woody material planted since then in that area, and the applicant submitted a report. I did put that up on the drive, and basically they specified what bushes were there, were planted in the area. I was actually a little surprised that it was done this time of year, especially with the ongoing drought. So it'll have to be something that's constantly watered, and it remains to be seen whether that survives a couple growing seasons or not.
Okay.
The boulders, so I'll pull up, I did have my own pictures, but the applicant actually submitted some recently as well. So I'll just pull up his showing you what the site looks like more now. So, whoops, I think these might have been mine. Let me get. Okay. So this is the entrance looking towards the back where the house is. So before there was retaining walls over in here.
Well, I don't see the pictures.
Yeah, nothing's come up, Brad.
All right, hold on. Thank you. Let's try this. Is this working now?
Looks good.
Yep, it's
Okay.
coming.
So can you see the photo? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So before there was a retaining wall all through this rounding back towards where this cone is. So that abrupt vertical wall has been removed, and it's now graded. It's got erosion control matted on it, and since my last visit, it looks like the boulders were put in place there. This is the other side of the driveway, not the side where we had shown. So this would be the side that called for the boulders, the fence and plantings there. So you can see the erosion control mat has been put down and some boulders on that. I haven't gone out and looked since that was done, but that's what we get from the applicant there. So in terms of the enforcement order, it looks like they're back to where they should be to be in compliance with the order of conditions for the most part. The only question I did have was back in this area here. So this is the other side of the driveway, where I questioned if some of the grading might have pushed the limit of the stone and material further out than what was originally shown on the plan. There was a culvert pipe for reference point that looked to be like it was on the property line. And then it was unclear to me just by eyeballing if some of that material went a little bit beyond it. And if it went a little bit beyond it, it means there was a little bit more wetlands fill that had taken place. Now, if that is the case, it's very minimal. It's nothing substantial, but it's something that should be verified just to make sure that everything conforms in that area as well. So like I said, it's pretty much back towards where it was supposed to be. The doesn't look like the fence or anything has been installed yet. But at least, the main thing was getting rid of those vertical walls and, trying to make sure that the replication planting at some point met what was on the plan. So in terms of the enforcement order, I wouldn't have a problem with lifting it at this point and continuing to, allow the applicant to finish up with the project. I think he also was looking for a certificate of compliance. I would say that this is not close at this moment. There's still a lot of growing, the monitoring of the replication area. And then what, if anything, the commission wants to see in addition, what was shown on the plan in terms of the fencing and any vegetation, in addition to these boulders along the edge of that driveway there.
So, Mr. Chair, whenever you allow me.
Yes, go ahead, Rashid.
So, Mr. Stone, thank you so much for your very detailed report. I also appreciate you meeting me there and your guidance all the time through. Like I said, I apologize. My excavation site guy really put the boulders too close to each other, which then became really the wall. And he thought he overdid it, but honestly, I had to really have him remove all that based on the order, and of course, pay the cost and all that. But I'm glad we were able to bring back to the original plan position. And also, when you visited me, I had in my plan these boulders, 10 feet apart, and you advised me that board would like to see, 3 feet apart, and boulders of 3 foot or bigger. So we actually procured those boulders and put them, 3 feet apart. Now, since we put those, boulders, they look very nice. And honestly, this is a slope area. There's really no way of, putting any we can do hydroseeding, but unfortunately, there will be no way of mowing that because that's really a slope area. And also, it is on the outside of the the fence. I mean the fabric. So at this point, I would request the board that we basically dress that up with the mulch, and we did not put any fabric underneath, So the vegetation which is growing naturally will have actually more opportunity to grow beyond even the fabric area, because the vegetation is kind of spreading underneath, and we let the natural vegetation grow there. So I would humbly request that we are not asked to put any more fencing and post and rail, because there's no space, because for two reasons. Number one, we put big boulders there, and last meeting I heard that the board really like the big boulders there. So we put big boulders and we put them very close to each other. So there's really not much space for any seating or any post and rail. And so first I like to request that to the board, that that would be acceptable to the board. And then I like to talk about the Ecotech report.
Go ahead, Brad. Comment?
So, it's really up in terms of the barrier. I'd have to physically see what's there in more detail than the pictures I have. And that would be up to the commission if they want more than the boulders anyway. But the only concern I have in listening to the rest of it was the not seeding it and putting mulch instead. And I don't think there's any reason you can't seed the areas between the boulders. I'd rather see that. I don't think the mulch is going to be something that's going to be permanently stabilized in that area. I would rather see, what's exposed gets seeded, gets growing, has some roots to keep it stable. I think at a minimum, that's something additional that should be done there. I don't think the mulch would be a great long-term solution.
So, Mr. Stone, we absolutely want to see that, stabilized, but it is a very stony, gravelly, stuff there. My concern would be if we grow the seed there, then how are we gonna mow it? Because it will be impossible to mow it. I would be okay if we want to put more bushes there and put more mulch to make it look nice. It's a slope area. Honestly, it's cheaper for me to just get hydro seed. There's no problem at all. I'm just concerned that how do we maintain that? That's my only concern.
Rashid, why can't you just seed it with some kind of a wild, mix that you don't have to maintain it by mowing it? Something that's deep rooted. Martha, I don't know, you might have some ideas of what vegetation is good for, wild areas that has deep roots to maintain the integrity of that slope.
Well, many things will have deep roots, and it looks like it's in shade. So maybe some of the perennial flowering things like lobelias or other things that are coming to me off the top of my head, but that could also provide some pollinator habitat and wouldn't need to be mowed and could look tidy with very little maintenance.
Okay, so that I don't think honestly this is a big debate for me. I would just offering the natural, because natural vegetation is really, like Mr. Stone saw last time, he was amazed that it's growing, that that much growth has gone since he came last time. So it is growing pretty good. But again, if the board wishes to see that I use some sort of a seed, you're right, there is a special seed mix you can use, so I can definitely look into that. That's not a problem.
Yeah, and like Brad said, the mulch is only a temporary thing that has to be replenished. Rashid, that doesn't hold up over time. It would probably revert to some kind of a wild flower, in time anyhow. But
it will.
Why don't we start with it and try to pick something good that has deep roots that will hold that slope and doesn't have to be mowed. It'll look nice and natural as you come in.
Okay. That would be great, but I would request that the new potential owner also requested me that we don't go with that post and rail, and that's the reason I procured big boulders there. It's pretty close, pretty stable, and that post and rail doesn't really, stay there forever. So these big boulders we put are there forever. So I would request that the board allow us to make that change and keep that boulders without post and rail, and we will grow some special seed there. Um, I asked that question to Mr. Stone, and he told me, advised me to ask you that question because you have that authority. Because our plan says boulders and post and rail, but at that time the boulders were 10 feet apart and they were smaller boulders. This time we're big boulders and pretty close to each other, and we hope that we don't need to put the post and rail there because the potential owner asked me to do that because it's not gonna be stable. And there's not
Mr.
much.
Chairman, if I might, I think the premise of the rail fence and the boulders and everything is to appropriately delineate the edge of the resource area and to prevent migration of lawn into those areas. Now, based on the limited picture that I saw from Brad, these are pretty big rocks. And if they are placed closely together, it would seem to me that the post and rail wouldn't add any additional protection there. So I'd be perfectly comfortable leaving it to Brad's judgment as to whether or not the boulders alone are ample enough to meet the needs of delineating that resource area.
All right. Martha, do you agree?
I agree.
Jason?
I also think ferns would look nice too, Rashid.
What's that, Martha?
Ferns would also make a nice addition around the boulders.
Yep,
We would agree with that too.
agreed with that.
Jason? You agree?
I'm in agreement with both comments.
Okay, and Ken?
Yes, I agree.
And I'm in agreement. And Brad, you don't have to make a decision. Okay?
Right. I'd have to walk the whole thing before I could make a decision.
Okay.
I can let you know next time.
If the boulders that are in place, Brad, are not ample enough, you can make that presentation you can express that to Rashid, and he'll either add some big boulders or put up a fence. It's really your judgment, and I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. That sounds good. So now the last item we have to deal with here is, should we lift the enforcement order at this point? And of course, there's going to have to be a certificate of compliance in the end. But right now, Martha, would you be in favor of lifting it? As Brad had mentioned, this is an option.
I would.
Jason?
I'm in agreement to lift it.
Okay, Bob?
I agree with Brad.
Okay, Ken?
Yes.
And I agree also. All right, Brad? Okay, Rashid?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to address one more question in that regards, and that was the reservation Mr. Stone had. May I continue for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Mr. Stone has shared his reservation in terms of the replication area. So, if you remember last time, the board asked me that put some dogwood there, and I went out, talked to Ecotech, and they looked at the plan. And basically, I would like to read a couple of sentences from that report, which was submitted on July 7th. It's saying, it is my understanding that this area was constructed in 2018. Therefore, this season constitutes the second growing season since special condition 32, 33, 34. I performed my first evaluation on June 5th, 2020. The attached photo number 1 depicts the condition of the replication area on June 5th. The replication area was at least 80% covered with native wetland species, including an overstory of red maple that was preserved during excavation, along with spice bush shrubs and a dense understory of sedges and rushes. Soils consisted of an average of 12 inches of organic rich, water saturated, stony topsoil over a depleted matrix subsoil. Following my first inspection, it came to my attention that the Conservation Commission was concerned about the lack of planted wetland shrubs with the replication. I reviewed the approved project plan and noted that a mix of wetland shrubs were proposed at a spacing of 8 feet in groups. Based on the size of the area and proposed spacing, I calculated 11 shrubs which were necessary to confirm the approved plan. On July 7th, I visited the site and approved 11 container-sized wetland shrubs which had been procured, including 4 cornus. Uh, so basically these are blueberries, different type of berries, and slatra. So these shrubs were in very good condition and averaged between 2 to 4 feet. I directed the planting location of these shrubs, and they were planted and watered in. Attach photo number 2, and then continue on. And then it says at the end, in my opinion, this work has been done in accordance with the special conditions and the approved plan and protocol, and meets the general performance standard requirements for boarding vegetated wetland replication at 310 CMR 10.55 4B. I have no further recommendations. Thank you so much for your time to hear this. I do know that we may have, difference of opinion there, but, we had a pretty, long time to have this natural habitat. And now, honestly, according to Arthur at Ecotech, it was a challenge to find a space for more plants, but to, satisfy the board. And I remember the chair said, Rashid, go ahead and put these dogwoods and you'll be okay. So we went ahead and put these 11 shrubs without wasting any time. We are watering them, but to be honest, according to this report, which is a third party, that we had, pretty good area already. We have now even better. And we would really like to, this has been 2 years and we'd like to close this matter. We believe we have done quite a bit in that regards.
Brad, you want to make a comment on that? I think the problem initially was the fact that the plantings didn't conform to what you had submitted on the plan, Rashid. That's what put us in this quandary. But now you have gone back out. You've gotten more woody vegetation in there.
Yes,
Brad,
sir.
what do you think on the amount of natural vegetation that Ecotech's saying already exists in this replication area?
Well, I'll go back to my comments from the last meeting too.
Yeah.
What they've planted more recently is what should have been there all along, because it meets more of what's there in the environment. And in terms of satisfying replication area standards, you plant something, you monitor it for 2 growing seasons. And I'll go back to my earlier comment. We're in the middle of a drought. It's in the middle of summertime. Even in a wetter summer, you typically don't put in wetland plants at that time. So this is something that's going to have to be monitored and see how they thrive.
Okay. All right. Rashid, you see where we're coming from? So we can't argue with that.
Mr. Chair, I totally see it. And what I'm saying is, yes, it was in my plan. Also, it was in my plan to put the boulders 10 feet apart, but I put 3 feet apart. I procure more boulders because that is much better solution. So yes, in the plan we didn't know that we would be able to save the, inherited species, and these species are growing very well and they are covering more than 80%, and that really satisfied the letter of the law. However, we did go out there and added more trees, understanding from the board that go ahead and add more dogwood trees and you would be fine. So now, are we saying we're going to wait 2 more years to close this?
2 growing seasons. That would be, it's close to 2 years if you're looking at it.
So Mr. Chair, my understanding last time was, again, we will do whatever is needed,
right,
and I'll stay on the hook. But I mean, whatever.
It's what the regulations require to confirm that replication area is going to withstand the rigors of time, Rashid. What Brad's saying is planting right now is is a very big risk with the dry season, and what you planted meant nothing may take. And then we're back to the original quandary that put us here is what went into that replication area wasn't what you said you would put in and what was approved by the commission. So Brad's saying what you have out there now with the new plants is much more appropriate. So we would really like to see the new stuff take. I'm gonna go to the commission here and see what some of their feelings are. Martha, can you give us your feelings?
Sorry, it takes me a little while to unmute. Where the goal of the plantings is to replicate the wetland area, and the woody plantings are a significant part of the original wetland conditions that existed in that site before you began construction. It's not always enough to just put green things on there and say we've replicated the wetland, because the woody species have different roles, different ecological functions. So it is important to make sure that they are successful. I certainly understand that it's frustrating to have that lengthy time requirement, but if this had been done according to plan in the first place, we wouldn't be looking at this extended time. So those are my feelings. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Martha. Jason.
Yeah, I don't have anything different to add. I mean, I would echo Martha's
Okay.
comments. And Brad.
All right. Bob.
I too am not persuaded that we should vary what are the underlying requirements here to monitor these replication areas over 2 years. I've not seen anything that would compel us to change those rules.
Okay. Ken.
No, I agree. I know when we have discussions on these replication areas, we usually ask that they're done at the beginning of the project so they do have a chance to mature as the project progresses, and we have a chance to monitor them. So I think we need to make sure force and watch them as they go, as they grow.
Okay, thanks, Ken. All right, Rashid. It's going to be 2 growing seasons, unfortunately. I mean, I wish it had been done according to plan. We wouldn't be in this position, but we are. So 2 growing seasons. All right,
Okay.
Rashid.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I appreciate it. Would you like another report from Ecotech in that regards? Because I asked them that question, and they did say that as far as the law is that yes, I agree that we presented a plan, but I'm asking, modification in the plan. As far as the law you're stating, that does say that it has to be 80% vegetated. It doesn't have to be with certain type of, because we did have the red maple and other bushes there. Yes, it is different than the plan, but we do have the more than 80% vegetated with the right stuff. So, and that has seen 2 years. Would
So
you like?
what you're proposing, Rashid, is that you're proposing a plan modification, really, is what you're proposing is, you didn't use the vegetation approved by the commission, and now you're wanting to say that we've had 2 years of growth on other types of native vegetation. You claim it's native, and what you're saying is I want to substitute that now for what I had originally submitted. So you're looking for a plan modification at this point.
Well, we're looking for minor modification, just like we did bigger boulder than the other.
I know, but a replication, I mean, that's part of our, responsibility here. A big part of it is to make sure that any wetland takings get appropriately revegetated. And for us to just say, no, yep, you did it your way and now it's okay. That probably, you heard the opinion of the commission. Everybody wants to see, we approved your original plan. We had no problem with it. Unfortunately, you didn't do it the way you said you were going to do it. So now you backed us against the wall here. And what you're saying is you want to modify your plan. And now that's a different approach. And I'm going to go to Brad for any comment on that approach, Brad. Is it possible to do a plan modification and make, if Ecotech does say these are appropriate species to replicate the native species that were disturbed? Or is that not appropriate at this point in time?
So it sounds like you're asking, is there an option? I mean, sure, they could certainly file a new, either request for an amended order or a new filing for something like that. Yeah. But I think what you've heard from other commissioners as well as myself is that we wouldn't be in favor of what was existing before the most recent plantings. I mean, I don't think that what was there was really what was on site before the disturbance. I would be much more in favor of what was proposed with the original plan.
Okay. Now, the one thing that bothered me in the report, if I heard Rashid correctly, he was saying that Ecotech said that these were native species to that area. Is that correct, or did I not hear you correctly, Rashid?
These are correct, Mr. Chair. I would request the board read that letter and maybe we continue that and Mr. Stone can make the visit and you can review the letter sent by, this is the second report by the Ecotech. So, I mean, I asked this specific question. I don't want to push anybody against the wall. And honestly, I've taken too much time and I apologize. And, we can continue next meeting after Mr. Stone review it, after you review the letters, and then we'll see what the board wishes.
Because the big I guess disagreement right now, Rashid, would be Brad doesn't feel what is out there with your replication was appropriate for that area. What was more appropriate was what you had on your plan. So that's the big problem right at this point. So we obviously nothing's happening. We're going to lift the enforcement order. You're going to continue with your work out there, and we can look at it again. But I think you see where the commission's leaning right now. We're most likely, unless something substantially changes here, and like Brad says, you could file it for an amended order. That is an option, and request new planting scheme, but it's got to be the native species that you disturbed. So you might be right back to the original scheme that you had presented.
So, Mr. Chair, that's what I'm saying. You please may read the letters, because me reading it partially, I think the board needs to read the Ecotech's report. These are two reports, consecutive reports, and Mr. Stone will visit it and see. And I don't want to take too much of your time. Please read these letters which are sent by Ecotech. I can ask them to come back and review one more time, and Mr. Stone will come in and review it. I mean, honestly, that's what. And when I ask a third party, is saying your obligation is to do 80%. Doesn't have to be the plan you presented. But again, I don't want to take too much of your time. I don't want to push you against the wall. We'll do whatever you need. I have taken too much.
All right.
I appreciate it.
There's nothing more we can do tonight, Rashid. You've already put your plantings in, so you did what you were supposed to do. Now, we can read the letter, but our point here is we're really focused on the enforcement order, and we are going to lift it tonight. We'll do a roll call. Martha, are you in favor of lifting it?
I am.
Okay, Jason?
I am.
Bob?
Aye.
Ken?
Yes.
And John Ostrowski, aye. All right, so we're going to lift the enforcement order, Rashid. Just keep doing your other stuff, and We'll read the report and see.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Brad, we have one more here, Zero Twin Island.
All right, give me 1 second to pull that up. Okay, can everyone see that photo?
Oh, yep, got it.
Okay, so we got a few calls that there was a deck being constructed on the island. This is one that's close to the Sunset Beach area. I think there's one more smaller island between this one and South Consigman Avenue. So give you a kind of sense of location. So it's a little north of the Stringer Dam, and not the closest one to the mainland there. And I did send an enforcement order to the property owner. It more or less, the enforcement order simply said cease and desist and contact us for further instructions on what to file once we have a better understanding of the entire scope of work. A few months before this, I want to say a little over 2 months ago, maybe closer to 3, I did get a call from a gentleman, and I don't recall his name, but he was asking what needed to be done to build a deck on an island. Didn't say which one, and mentioned that the building inspector's office had sent them to my office. And I explained to them that, you know, they would have to make a filing with the commission, depending on what the scope of work is. You know, we determine more which application is more appropriate, but that would be the process. So I can only speculate that this was a particular site, and now there is something under construction here. So whether it's just you know, deck in there, or if they intend to build a dock off of it or something else later on, I don't know what the scope is yet, because I haven't heard back from anyone. Let me just see if I can check when that was issued. So July 9th it was sent out, and I haven't heard a response yet. And I also have not seen the green card come back yet, but I'd have to check with some of our admins in the office to see if they might have it as well. So you know, there's really not a lot to show. You know, that's pretty much the extent. You know, we did go around the entire island with the boat just to see if there was any other construction, and what you see is that right there. So it's not like they're ripping up the bank or moving earth or things of that nature. It's more or less, you know, we don't know what the scope is, don't know if it could have more of an impact at some point, and you know, whether it's simply an RDA that they might need, or something, you know, that's more definitive than that, depending on what they want to do. So hopefully we hear from them in terms of what's going on, and you know, at some point it's before the commission.
Yeah. Brad, are those drums a pier, that they're a floating pier that's attached to the deck? I mean, that's something Ken should be aware of, right? For the Lake Quinsigamon Commission, Ken? Any dock
Yeah,
that intrudes in?
I can. Yes, those were, they did have a dock there previous to this deck that was constructed. So you can see they're a little older. It looks like they may have constructed new ones also.
Yeah.
There was a dock there prior.
Those were permitted, Ken, through you guys?
Yes, I believe there is a plate on one of those. Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's it for that one, Brad, correct? And that will wrap up our enforcement orders. And does anyone have any questions on this one before we move off of it? Okay, I don't see anyone.
Can I just add one thing? It's not actually directed at this one, but can I just make a comment on the lake?
Yep.
The lake has been really busy with a lot of traffic and whatnot. But another thing that's happened is that they removed the signs on Drake Island where the eagles are.
Yep.
So that's an ongoing issue. I believe the police have been out there trying to enforce that because the eagles are still nesting there. But that is an issue that, you know, I believe some of the signs have been removed.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah, that's not good. Okay. All right, moving on to our extension permits. 935 Main Street, Brad. It's there. That's an ongoing one, right?
Well, this is the one that, you know, we went out there for 2 reasons at the time. One was to review an amended order request and also the extension permit request. And the site was heavily disturbed, and really there wasn't a lot of BMPs in place in a number of areas. So we had that concern. I have not had the opportunity to witness the site during the rain event, but I was out there as recently as today just to see what the site looked like. They have done quite a bit of stabilization in a number of areas, and it's nice to see getting a lot of growth in spots too that were completely bare. So the site's improved quite a bit. There are some areas where, you know, you've got some large stockpiles that are, you know, immediately adjacent to the paved roadway, things like that. That's not really a great practice, and you could have stuff running out into the street and causing issues there. But in general, the site looks better. I'd wish I had a chance to see it when it was raining, but I just didn't.
But also, Brad, you brought up last month that the COVID virus stayed all the permits, the expiration date on the permits. So basically, we wouldn't extend this until the order is lifted, correct? The emergency order?
I think the way I read the emergency order is the permit's still valid because of that order.
Right.
When we got the request, it would have already had expired under normal circumstances, and they would have had to do a new filing. But the way I read the order is that the permit's still valid at this point, and since it's valid, my opinion is that the commission has the opportunity to extend it. So let me just further expand on that too, John. So you have the opportunity to extend it, but also the way I read the emergency order, you technically don't have to do anything at this point. So normally you have timelines to react to different filings in whether it's an RDA, a notice of intent, an extension permit request. The way that emergency order is written, the commission doesn't have to act on these until 45 days, beginning 45 days after the emergency order is lifted. So that applies to anything coming before you right now. You know, if somebody filed a notice of intent today, the commission could say, let's wait, you know, till 45 days after the order is lifted before we start entertaining these things.
Yep.
I don't think anyone would agree that's a great approach. I'm glad we're all doing it the way we're doing it because we want to keep things moving and not see 100 projects once the emergency order is lifted. The only concern I would have with waiting is if the commission feels it's appropriate to issue the extension, you know, once that emergency order is lifted, that permit's no longer valid. So you couldn't issue an extension once the permit's no longer valid. So, you know, you'd really have to make sure it gets done during this emergency order period. Or the other thing they'd be able to do is file a new application.
All right.
And like I said before, I didn't expect the emergency order to be listed anytime soon when we first started talking about this 2 months ago. Who knows what the future brings now, but I mean, it's not something that I would be opposed to at this point.
Okay.
I'd like to see the site look a little bit better, but it certainly does look better than what I saw last time.
All right. Brad, just to clear up the emergency order in the 45 days, if they lift the emergency order tomorrow, and let's say his permit has expired technically, it would have expired by tomorrow, don't you have that 45 days to go in and reissue or the extension request?
My opinion is no, because once the permit's expired, that's it. You can't issue an extension permit once something's expired. The 45 days isn't a tolling period that keeps permits active or other things. It's just the period that the commission has before they have to start acting on things.
All right. So basically, if we have an extension request, we should act on them. I mean, we wouldn't want to put anybody in a position where they lose their permit once the enforcement order is lifted. So the only thing holding this one back is to get the site in a little better shape, and then we will issue an extension. Correct? That would be the proper way.
I'm not sure I understood what you just said, John. That you
in other words, the site when we first saw it, it was very raw and disturbed, very little vegetation, very little maintenance of the catch basin, silt sacks and things. Once that has been improved to a point satisfactory to you, you would feel comfortable with us then acting on the extension request.
Yeah, and I would say, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, I would say I'm at that point right now. Barely, but I wouldn't be opposed to issuing it, but it's, the site does need improvement, and, I'm going to have to watch it more closely on my end too, but, it is much better than it was the last time we talked.
Okay. So why don't we take a vote tonight to extend it? Is there a problem?
Mr. Chairman, I would make that motion that we, issue this, extension as requested. And I say that because I think if the site deteriorates, we have other tools in our toolbox to address those issues.
That sounds good. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, not seeing any. Let's take a roll call. Martha?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
And John Ostrowski, aye. All right, so we extended that one. We can take that off the list. And the last item is project updates. 285 Spring Street.
Okay. Not a heck of a lot to update the commission on again. We have been receiving reports from the engineer monitoring the site for Spring Street. There have been some problems with the construction, not really any wetland impacts, but, a lot of, let's say, dangerous situations where you could have blowouts or impacts would have been imminent. So they've been reporting to DEP as well as the commission and making modifications as necessary. Get back to my original comment, because that house was so close to the wetlands before, I think you're gonna, see somebody end up cutting some of the trees down in there, or coming back to the commission for permission if hopefully they, seek permission for it first. But that's still one of my concerns with the site. That house is just right up tight, and when this new engineer came on board to monitor the site, it wasn't the engineer of record for the design plan. That was his very first comment from day one, that those trees are going to be a problem with the building there. So the commission may see something before them again for that site. the 280 South Quincy, I think shortly after our last meeting, I forwarded the commission the consent order from the department that included the penalty for the site. So there was that was issued. Whether that persuades them to do things right from now on remains to be seen, but there was, it's the department took it pretty seriously. That's probably a heftier fine than I would have expected for a residential lot, but that just goes to show that it seemed like it was a pretty bold move on, the developer's part to do that, having been through such a rigorous process with the commission and the department to get the superseding order. It seemed like everybody should have known what was expected, and right away they went in there and altered wetlands.
What was the DEP penalty amount, Brad?
Don't quote me on it, but I think it was just a little under 15,000.
Okay.
The high 14 something.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant one. Okay. Anything else, Brad, for tonight? Because we're at the end of the agenda.
Just a quick update on, procedural wise, and maybe I should have kept everybody more up to speed on things. I know we've been trying to keep our head above water internally, keeping up with all the changes, especially early on during the COVID process and the emergency order. But just a clarification, that's the way that is written gives local boards a lot of discretion in terms of their timelines to react to things. And I think that was probably came out of the governor's office to give communities that were less capable than us, may not have had the electronic resources to do remote meetings, the staff, things of that nature. So, technically the commission doesn't have to wait until 45 days after that's listed to start doing anything. Like I said, I'm glad we are, because I'd rather keep people moving, and you don't want to see a rush of projects once everything's done anyway. And just to further touch on that, even though we've been so much busier trying to react to the additional projects we've seen internally, simply there's a lot that the commission hasn't seen, because I've been able to work with homeowners and avoid people from having to file. A lot of pools going on right now, a lot of decks, a lot of additions. If you wanted an above ground pool, good luck getting one. If you didn't plan on opening your pool with your contractor last fall, you were probably waiting until the middle of July to get them out there because they're so busy. So there's quite a bit of homeowner activity going on, and we've been dealing and working with residents as best we can on that. And some of it you've seen a lot of our DAs if you think back over the past couple months for things, but there's a lot we've been able to, why don't you move the pool 20 feet this way, you don't have to file, kind of things. I was out to one street today showing somebody how to avoid coming to the commission for that. So it's been quite busy, a lot busier than normal on the wetlands end of things. You're just not seeing all of that. You're seeing some of it, but not all of it. And in terms of meeting the deadlines, we're still meeting what would be the normal statutory requirements in terms of having the hearings, meetings, and getting decisions and out. With the exception of one particular case, early on, I was extremely busy, and that amended order for that project at the Edgemere Drive-In there, I think I got that out 3.5 weeks instead of what would normally be required is 3 weeks. And they weren't planning on doing that at the time anyway. So that's probably the only project where we technically didn't meet what would have been the old requirements. But so I think we've been doing pretty good at keeping things moving through all of this. The other thing the commission should probably have some knowledge on is how the appeal periods are affected by this. So, normally you have all the regulations list all the different parties that can appeal a conservation commission decision. So if you're an abutter or a group of 10 residents, or if you're the conservation commission and it's a DEP superseding order, something like that, you still have only 10 business days to file an appeal for something like that. The exception is the Department of Environmental Protection. So they're under the same guidelines that the commission has to react to things where they don't have to see it until 45 days after the emergency order is lifted. That's the same with their rights to appeal. So what that means is technically when the commission issues an order of conditions, that's not valid now 10 business days after it's ordered if there's no appeal, because the department still has rights. So when you read the permit conditions, you read the regulations, technically if somebody doesn't have a valid order, they can't start work. So what's been suggested by the department is that the applicants write to them and request a letter from them that they don't intend to appeal the Conservation Commission's decision. So I've been putting that in our cover letters when I issue the orders of conditions, making people aware of that. The first one that I'm aware has done that, I just received today from one of the engineers that sent the department an email. So some of these orders that have been issued and the appeal period has normally lapsed, technically it hasn't, and they really can't start working on those until they hear from DEP that they don't intend to appeal, or they get past that emergency order timeline.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks, Brad. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody from the commission have anything tonight? All right. Do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Do we have a second?
Okay.
And we'll do a roll call. Martha?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
John Ostrowski, aye. All right, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Aye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.